He was governing and running well as the president who led the war on terror. When the issue became the war on Iraq, he did a miserable job in the eyes of the American public, and that, to me, was the problem throughout 2006. They tried valiantly to make this an election about the war on terror. It kept becoming over and over again an election about the war in Iraq, and that was not good turf for him, to be honest.
The sense of entitlement and hubris and sort of we know best screamed clearly to voters. When you have the sort of complicity between the White House, as Jill said, and the congressional leadership, that was not lost on the average voter out there. 2005 ended with the White House and the congressional leadership in big trouble politically.
He had a different style than the other candidates. He tended to, the serious nature of this guy, not that the other candidates aren't, but he is deliberative, and short formats are not good for him. It's why we pushed constantly to try and do, longer format interviews, whether it was 60 Minutes or Larry King or, whatever. We spent too much time going after the morning shows, and we should have, we realized later on that, we needed to really work hard to get long format interviews because it was the best format for him.
It's a scapegoat to say that it was just a bad communication strategy. The president communicated constantly. He's out there all the time. I thought, and I know that his team of communicators I respect a great deal, have a different perception of the media today and how you communicate, and I think that they believe that you don't just have a message today and you don't worry about stepping on your message. You can put out 3 different messages because there's so much media out there that you've got different audiences.
Clearly, I think the economy was a lot worse than the administration thought it was going to be. That famous meeting in December before the inauguration, the meltdown was clear. The need for immediate action was clear. The need for action that was not going to be popular was clear. And I think that there's no question but that as President Obama said at one point, he said, boy, if I knew it was going to be this bad, I'm not sure I would have run. And so I think there's absolutely no question that you don't find very many presidents of the United States that have to take over a ship that needs serious bailing.
I never begrudged Mitt Romney not putting in millions and millions of dollars. I think he felt very strongly that he did not want there to be a perception that he was buying this election. He was going about it the old-fashioned way. He was raising the money, raising the funds that he needed, and he worked harder, I'll say, than any candidate I've ever seen going out and raising the money. And it is not a small thing to go toe-to-toe with the President of the United States and be able to compete.
In politics, you have money, people, and time, and this is one of the only times I've worked on a campaign where we had time, and we wanted to make sure that we didn't squander it. So that was, I think, one of our biggest advantages. That, what that looks like is we had time to build up our organization. We had time to test staff. We had time to, analyze things that were working and things that weren't. We could test how we were doing with voter registration a year out and make adjustments as we got closer to the election day. So I think the number one advantage for us on the organization side, certainly, and really on everything we did, was time.
There's a bunch of things you can do on election day when you find out that turnout isn't where you need it to be in terms of moving paid phone calls into a region, getting surrogates on the radio to call in and say, hey, make sure you vote, moving your resources around. So we'd have a big discussion about what we were going to do. And then finally, the first time we went through this, somebody at the end raised their hand and was like, well, Dan, what does that mean? Like, what are we going to lose Ohio? And he was like, well, no, that means that our model has us winning with 53.2%, and now we're going to win with 53.1.